Have you ever looked around and realized you're surrounded by people but still feel completely alone? Not lonely, just alone. There's a difference. And if you're a Sigma, you've probably felt this more times than you can count. If you know what I'm talking about, if that hits somewhere deep, then what I'm about to break down is going to make a lot of things click into place. Everyone talks about how Sigma males are these mysterious lone wolves. But nobody asks the real question: why? Why do they often end up with nobody around them? Is it a choice? Is it a curse? Or is there something deeper going on that we're all missing? Because there isn't just one reason. There are 8 patterns, 8 truths, that quietly explain why many Sigma males end up with fewer people in their corner than most. And it's not what people think. It's not about being difficult or antisocial or broken. It's something else entirely. Something that starts making sense once you see the whole picture. So let's get into it. The first reason stings a bit. You see people too clearly. Have you ever caught yourself knowing what someone was about to say before they said it? Or sensed when someone was lying even though everyone else believed them? If you're Sigma, that happens constantly. Little contradictions, patterns in behavior, the gap between what people say and what they do. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. That changes how you interact with them. Because you're not responding to their words anymore. You're responding to what you know is actually happening. Most people don't operate this way. They take things at face value. Someone says they're fine. They believe it. Someone makes a promise. They trust it. You used to do that too. But experience taught you different. Not once or twice. Almost every single time. People say one thing and do another. Not out of malice always. Sometimes they're lying to themselves first and then to you. But the effect is the same. Their words stop matching reality. So you started watching behavior instead of listening to explanations. And behavior tells a different story. It shows you who's reliable and who's not. Who means what they say and who's just managing your perception of them. That awareness makes relationships harder. Because you're seeing the performance while everyone else is buying the act. The Sigma mind processes social information through multiple filters simultaneously. While the majority just focus on what's being said, your brain is cross-referencing tone, body language, past behavior, and current context all at once. It's not a choice. It's how your threat detection system evolved. And that system doesn't let you ignore inconsistencies even when you want to. People can sense when you see through them. They don't know exactly what you see, but they feel exposed. And that makes them uncomfortable. So they keep distance. Not because they dislike you, because being around you requires them to be more honest than they're used to being. Here's the second reason nobody talks about. You learned early that people leave. Maybe your parents split up. Maybe you moved around as a kid. Maybe someone important died or disappeared when you were young. Whatever it was, you learned that people don't stay. Not always. Sometimes not even when they promise to. That lesson sticks, and it changes how you connect with people forever. Does this mean you never make long-term plans with people? No. You do, but it takes a while. You test that person multiple times. Not because you're trying to be difficult. Because experience taught you that words are cheap and actions are expensive. Almost every single time you trusted too fast, you got burned. So now you move slower. You watch longer. You verify before you invest. Other people don't think this way. They jump in fast. Build connections quickly. Make plans around people they've only known a short time. And sometimes that works, for them. But you've seen how often it doesn't. You've watched people change, drift, or disappear once the moment fades. So now you take your time. You don't hold back out of fear. You just know trust needs proof. And that makes some people uncomfortable. They can sense you're measured, not all in right away. Some understand it. Others walk away. But you're fine with that, because you'd rather lose the impatient than keep the unreliable. The Sigma attachment style often develops from early inconsistency. When you couldn't predict whether your environment would be safe or chaotic, your brain adapted by becoming hypervigilant about commitment. You're not pushing people away. You're running a background security check. And that check takes time. The irony is you're not trying to keep people at a distance forever. You're trying to make sure that when you do let them in, they're worth the risk. But people become distant when they feel like you're testing them. So the protection mechanism that's supposed to keep you safe sometimes creates the very outcome you were trying to avoid. Reason 3 is where things shift. You outgrew the need for surface-level friendships. Most friendships are built on shared activities. You play the same sport. You work at the same place. You drink at the same bar. That's the foundation. And it works fine until one of you changes. Maybe you stop drinking, or you switch jobs, or you just get tired of doing the same thing every weekend. Suddenly, the friendship has no structure. And without structure, it falls apart. You probably noticed this around your mid-20s. The friends you had in high school or college started drifting. Not because anyone did anything wrong, just because the thing that held you together stopped being relevant. And while other people rushed to replace those connections with new surface-level ones, you didn't, because you realized something. Having 10 friends you can't talk to about anything real is worse than having nobody. The average person doesn't make that trade. They'd rather keep people around just to avoid feeling alone, even when deep down, they know there's no real connection left. But at some point, you start noticing something. Not everyone around you actually adds to your life. Some people drain you, some quietly slow you down, and others, you just outgrew them. Maybe you matured. Maybe something in you changed. How many times have you felt like your own circle was holding you back without even realizing it? You don't crave solitude. You crave substance. You want conversations that spark ideas, people who challenge you, connections that actually make you grow. But those are rare. And when you realize that, you stop chasing quantity and start protecting your energy for the few who truly elevate you. Here's what's wild though. You're not rushing to fill the void. You're not desperately trying to make new friends or find your other half. Because finding someone who's 100% real in everything they say is super rare nowadays, almost impossible. And you'd rather wait for that rarity than settle for something that feels like playing Russian roulette with your time and energy. That's not about being picky. That's about protecting what little genuine connection you have left to give. The fourth reason is where things get interesting. You stopped performing for approval. Every social group has unspoken rules. Laugh at this. Agree with that. Don't challenge this person. Don't bring up that topic. It's a performance, and everyone's doing it without realizing they're doing it. You used to do it too, until one day you didn't. Maybe you got tired, or maybe you just couldn't pretend anymore. Either way, you stopped playing the game. That's when people started calling you difficult, or too intense, or too serious. What they really mean is you stopped making them comfortable. You stopped laughing at jokes that aren't funny. Stopped nodding along with opinions you don't agree with. Stopped being the version of yourself that made group dynamics smooth. And groups don't forgive that. They don't kick you out directly. They just stop inviting you. Stop calling. Stop checking in. Until one day you realize you're not part of anything anymore. Here's the thing people miss about being a Sigma. Authenticity is expensive. It costs you access. The more real you get, the fewer spaces you fit into. Because most spaces aren't built for real. They're built for comfort. And comfort requires everyone to stay a little bit fake. When your brain is wired to value freedom over belonging, faking it feels like a threat to your identity. It's not that you can't mask. It's that masking triggers a stress response that makes the whole interaction feel dangerous. You're not antisocial. You're not against marriage or relationships or having kids, but for any of that to happen, everything has to be aligned. The values, the honesty, the depth. Otherwise, it feels like gambling with your entire life. And you've seen too many people lose that bet to rush into it blindly. The fifth reason is something you've probably felt your whole life. You refuse to participate in tribal thinking. Humans are tribal by nature. Pick a side. Defend your people. Attack the others. It's how groups survive. But when you're a Sigma, you don't operate that way. You don't have a side. Or if you do, you're willing to criticize it just as much as you criticize the opposition. That makes you dangerous to tribal cohesion. Because tribes need loyalty, and loyalty means not questioning the group narrative. Have you ever lost friends just because you wouldn't take a side? You probably have. Someone brings up something political or controversial, and you try to see both sides instead of arguing. But suddenly, you're the enemy. Not because your point was wrong, because you broke ranks. You didn't defend the tribe. You thought for yourself, and tribes don't reward that. They punish it. The loneliest position in any argument is the middle, because both sides assume you're against them. You're not against anyone. You're just trying to think clearly. But clear thinking looks like betrayal to people who need you to pick a team. So they exile you, label you a fence-sitter, call you indecisive or cowardly. Anything to explain why you won't join their side. The Sigma brain has lower sensitivity to in-group bias. That's the psychological mechanism that makes most people automatically favor their own group and distrust outsiders. Your brain doesn't fire that way as strongly. So while others feel a rush of belonging when they join a tribe, you feel claustrophobic. Like you're sacrificing independent thought for the illusion of safety. You're not scared to pick a side. You're scared of picking wrong. And the only way to avoid picking wrong is to stay open to being wrong. That requires flexibility. But flexibility reads as weakness in tribal spaces. So you end up outside of all tribes, which often means you end up with fewer people. Because most human connection is tribal, and you opted out of the tribe. The sixth reason is one most people miss. You prioritize truth over comfort. Most conversations are about comfort. People say what makes others feel good. They avoid hard topics. Smooth over tension. Keep things light. That's how social harmony works. But having a Sigma personality means you default to truth, even when truth is uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable. This probably started when you realized that avoiding hard conversations just delays problems. It doesn't solve them. So you started bringing things up early, naming tension instead of ignoring it, asking questions people didn't want to answer. And that made you the guy who makes things awkward, the guy who won't just let things go. Why do you do this? Here's what people don't understand. You're not trying to make things awkward. You're trying to make things real. Because real problems need real conversations. And real conversations are uncomfortable. But discomfort isn't the same as harm. Sometimes discomfort is the only path to clarity. The Sigma's nervous system treats unresolved tension like a constant stress signal. People in general can forget and move on. You can't. That unresolved thing sits in your mind like an open program draining battery. So you address it. Not to be difficult. To close the loop so you can actually relax. So they avoid you. Not consciously. But over time, they stop calling when they need advice. Stop inviting you to things where they want to keep it light. Because they know you won't play along. You'll ask the question no one wants asked. Point out the thing everyone's pretending not to see. And while that might be helpful, it's not fun. And people choose fun over helpful almost every time. You're not against fun or lightness. You just need the foundation to be solid first. And most people want to skip the foundation and go straight to the fun part. Here's the seventh reason. You don't need constant validation. Most social interaction is validation exchange. You compliment me. I compliment you. You support my decision. I support yours. It's a loop, and it keeps relationships alive. But being a Sigma means you validate yourself. You know what you're worth without needing others to confirm it. That independence is powerful, but it also makes you irrelevant to people who need constant feedback. Think about how many friendships are just people asking each other for approval. Should I take this job? Do I look good in this? Was I right to be mad about that? They're not really asking. They're seeking confirmation. And when you don't participate in that exchange, when you don't need their approval and don't give it freely, the relationship loses its function. You're not being cold. You're being honest. If someone asks your opinion, you give it straight, not to hurt them. Because anything less than straight feels like lying. But people don't always want straight. They want support. And support sometimes means agreeing even when you don't. You can't do that. So they stop asking. And once they stop asking, they stop talking. And once they stop talking, they're gone. Why does validation feel empty to you? Because Sigma males get their sense of worth from internal metrics, not external feedback. Most people's self-esteem is regulated through social approval. Yours is regulated through competence and authenticity. You measure yourself against your own standards, not other people's opinions. That makes you stable. But it also makes you incompatible with the validation economy that runs most relationships. That's where reason 8 comes in. You stopped chasing quantity and started protecting quality. This is the thing that separates Sigma men from men who are alone, but desperate not to be. You made peace with it. You decided that being alone is better than being surrounded by people who don't really know you. Better than performing. Better than pretending. Better than being half present in spaces that require you to be half fake. Now, some of you might have an old good friend or two, but not every Sigma man is that lucky. And that's okay too. It doesn't mean all Sigma males have no friends. Having this personality just makes you more skeptical when it comes to people. The probability of having fewer close connections is much higher compared to other personality types. And you've accepted that trade, because you'd rather have one real friend, or none at all, than 10 fake ones. That acceptance didn't come easy. You probably fought it for years, tried to fit in, tried to be lighter, tried to care about things that bore you and laugh at things that don't land. But at some point, you got tired, and you realized the exhaustion of pretending was worse than the peace of being real. So you chose real, even though real meant being more selective about who gets access to you. People will tell you you're missing out, that you need more people in your life. That connection is what makes life worth living. And maybe they're right about connection mattering. But their version of connection costs something you're not willing to pay. It costs your authenticity, your peace, your ability to be yourself without editing. And you decided those things matter more than having a full contact list. So here you are. Maybe 1 or 2 solid people in your corner. Maybe still searching for those people. Either way, you're not settling. You're not filling your life with people just to look busy or feel normal. You're building something authentic, even if it takes longer. Some people call that being too picky. You call it having standards. And standards are harder to maintain than most people realize. But at least what you build is yours. At least it's real. And real is the only thing worth having. You're not against connection. You're not running from love or friendship or building something meaningful with people. You're just done pretending that more automatically means better. And you're willing to wait however long it takes to find the right thing, even if that means walking alone until you do. If you made it this far, you're not here by accident. Most people would have bounced after 2 minutes, but you stuck around because you wanted to understand. Not just hear it, actually get it. And that already puts you ahead of 96% who never question why they feel the way they do. Now here's what I'm curious about. If you had to pick just one that explains why you have fewer people around you than most, which would it be? Let me know in the comments. If you're not subscribed yet, hit that button and join the biggest Sigma community on YouTube. Thanks for watching. If you want more, I recommend watching the video on the screen right now.